Hey guys, welcome to this week's sew along. I am doing the cinch sweater from Lowland Kids. I have my pieces already cut out here. So I have the back, which for this pattern it's not cut on the folds like most patterns. It's cut to mirror. So just make sure that you guys cut to mirror. I almost always accidentally cut it on the folds just because that's what I'm used to. So I just take scissors down the center of it afterwards and get all that. And I have my two sleeves, my front bodice. This pattern has like a neck seam cover for the back just to kind of give it a clean look. So I have that. I also have a little like handmade tag. I don't know if you can see, it says 2T. I got these stamps on an Etsy page that I will link down in like the description. I'm obsessed because I never really remember to sew in tags, and so like I know this is a tag, but I usually just stamp it right onto the garment, but for this I wanted to try it on a tag and just see how it looks. So I actually got my shop's logo and then all like the different sizes too. So this one's 2T because I keep I'll make my kids matching stuff a lot, but they're in 2T and 3T, so sometimes I can't tell which is which. So anyhow, then I have my like little facing piece that flips up under for the cinch for the front and for the back. I have my neckband and my cuffs. So let's get started. Okay, so our first step is to lay our back bodice right sides together so that we can sew down the center seam. So I have mine right sides together. It might not look it because it's like double-sided, it's the same on both sides. But if you are using like a print that has like a white backing or like a solid backing, make sure that you have it right sides together for this part. And I'm gonna do my best to, I clipped it so that hopefully I can keep my stripes all matched up, but we'll see how that goes. Good, look at that stripe match. I'm psyched. All right, so our next step is to take our sleeves and lay them on here right sides together again. So I have my right side of my bodice up, and then I need to figure out, it's so hard to tell what's the right side on this. It's just like a little boulder on the right side. So then you can see with the sleeves that one side goes up higher than the other. That's the back. So you want to make sure when you're putting it right sides together that the taller side lines up with the back bodice shoulder seam. So I'm going to put this here. Again, I'm going to try my hardest to line up my stripes. I didn't cut it perfectly, so I'm just going to kind of lay it out how I need to get the stripes to match. Nice. Matched up pretty good. Alright, so then take your other sleeve and make sure it's right sides together again. What? I'm doing a video, honey. Yeah. Okay. I don't usually pin this much, but I want to make sure my stripes match up, so I am. Violet. No, Daddy's not sleeping. No. Alright, so now you're gonna do the front bodice. Okay, go outside. You can. Daddy's out there. Go see him. Okay. So now you want to, again, put it right sides up and take your front bodice and line it up. I'm starting mine, like you can tell probably that it's a little bit off, but that's because I want my stripes to match up, so I don't mind if the neckline goes a little deeper in order to get the stripe matching. I tried to cut it out in a way that the stripes would line up, but I must have done something off.
Help, Mama.
Go open the door, baby.
Open the door.
You can open the door. You open it all the time. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now you have 4 pieces all put together. Well, I guess technically 5 because the back bodice was 2. So you have front sleeve, back sleeve. So then you just want to match up the other sleeve with the front bodice. So we have our front bodice, our sleeves here, and our back bodice. So the next step is going to be doing the neckband. So I pinned all my stuff here together so I wouldn't forget to do the tag or the seam cover. So I'm just going to take my ribbing first and I'm going to sew it together because we're going to be doing this part in the round. So this is the right side. So I'm just going to fold it in half and then in half again. So this is the way that I always do my binding or my bands, whether it's the waistband, the cuffs, the neckband. I do the double fold. So now that we have that in the round, just go ahead and open it. When you flip it up, you'll see that it's just naturally folded in half the way that you want. And you're going to go ahead and find the center front and then the center sides. So now you're going to go ahead, so you have your garments inside out. So you're going to put the neckband inside and just pin the back right where that back center seam is. And then find the center front. I'm just doing a real rough estimate here, but that's fine. And then line up those 2 to find where your side center is. And again for the other side. Okay, and now this part is totally optional to do the seam cover. It's a nice little touch. I usually don't do it just out of pure laziness, but I'm doing it for the video so that you guys can see how it's done. So now you have your shirt on the outside and then your neckband on the inside. So find the center of your seam cover and just pin that on top of where your neck binding is. So now your neck binding is sandwiched between the bodice and the seam hider. And then I'm also going to throw this tag in there just right now to get it over with. So that when I flip it under and top stitch, the tag will be hanging down. Hopefully that works because, like I said, I usually just stamp it right inside. But now you're just gonna start serging around in a circle. So I'm gonna start right on the back where the tag is. And you're going to stretch your neckband, but not the bodice or, not the bodice or the seam hider. So like the seam hider should only go to this shoulder seam right here where you attached or connected the sleeve with the back bodice. So it should line up perfectly to fit right there. So you don't stretch it at all, and you also don't stretch the bodice. So it can be a little tricky. Just take it and pull it until everything is just perfectly in line, and then you'll start serging around. Okay, so just went and grabbed my scissors real quick. Now we're going to sew down the seam cover that we just put in. So what you can do here is take it to your sewing machine and you'll do a straight stitch along, so this is still the inside, but just along where the serge line is, and just you'll be sewing it right to where that seam is, just to give it a nice finished look. It's totally optional, you don't have to do it. If you do it, I suggest that you put your stitch length to like a 4.5, something like that, just because it's like knit and you want it to stretch, especially where it's the neck. Or if you have, you know, a cover stitch, you can just do a single chain stitch. That will work too. And I probably should have back stitched, but that's okay. Alright, so I just did it with an 1/8 inch seam allowance, if you can even see it there. Not a huge fan of top stitching on knit, so that's usually why I leave the seam cover out. But anyhow, let's see. So now you're just going to fold it under to hide the raw edge, and then take some pins and just pin it in place. Okay, so I got it all pinned in. Just check the back to make sure it's not like bunched up and nothing, like everything stayed straight and in line. And then again, you're gonna wanna use a long straight stitch for this. And you're gonna wanna do it about, I'd say like a 1/4 inch, maybe a 1/2 inch down from where the neckband meets the shirt. So let's see, I kind of just feel with my finger where it is. You can't really see. And just, I hate these light bulbs. Just feeling with my finger for where the seam is and lining my needle up with that. And I'm starting where my sleeve hits the back bodice, because that's where your seam cover started and finished. So I'm just gonna go forward. So hopefully you can see. You can see where it's stitched all down. And now it's nice and covered in there. It's like a really clean seam. It's really nice. It is a nice touch. I should do it more. I just don't love the look on the outside of top stitching. Maybe when I get a cover stitch, I'll like it more. Okay, sorry, I ran out of space. So I had to delete a few things off my phone. But anyhow, we just finished up the seam right here. So I started and stopped where the shoulder seams are. You can go all the way around if you want to. I do not. I usually don't even top stitch at all, or do the seam cover. So that's what my front looks like. If you go around the front, you'll want to use a smaller seam allowance when you're at the front, and then only use the larger seam allowance where the seam cover is in the back. And so now we'll go ahead and sew down the side seams. So now we're gonna go ahead and do our cuffs. So I'm just gonna do just like I did the neckband. I'm going to put it, fold it in half, widthwise and then in half lengthwise, and then just serge along that. So if you're not using ribbing for this part, you might need to sew a gathering stitch on your sleeve because it's such a wide sleeve. And then obviously the cuff is usually 80%, but because this sleeve is designed to have like kind of a bubble effect, the cuff is about half the length, maybe like 60%. So ribbing will make the stretch, but it's tough. Like I'm pulling it as hard as it will go. If you're not using ribbing, you're gonna really need to sew gathering stitches. I've done that in a couple of my other videos if you wanna check them out. Basically, you just put your machine on the longest stitch length and sew 2 straight lines all the way around, and then pull the bobbin thread to gather up the fabric. And then that'll make it easier to sew on these cuffs. But with ribbing, I think I'll be okay. We'll see. I might need to, but I'm gonna give it a try first. Lazy girl method. So you could see how hard I had to pull that to make it work, and this is with ribbing fabric. Gathering it definitely would have helped, I'm sure, but I'm just gonna steam it after and hope that it cinches back up. It should be fine because this is actually Lowland ribbing, so it has insane recovery. It doesn't really stretch out. I've had really good luck with it so far. But yeah, so you can see how it kind of super gathers it up. This sleeve is really meant to have that like bubble wide look to it. All right, done with the sleeves. So now we are going to do the casing part. I lost one of mine. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Okay. So you'll notice on the cinch that the back dips down and the front comes up. So you can see how the back hemline dips down, the front hemline comes up. It's kind of hard to see because this is all striped, but you can see. So when you're laying out your fabric, let's see, you want to put it right sides together, and you're going to line it up just like that. So the long piece that goes on the back is going to curve this way, and then the piece that goes on the front is going to curve the opposite way. So back, front. And then you're going to line up these side seams and sew those together. So this one here, and then all the way over here, and do the same here. So they're not curving in the same direction for this. And now what you want to do is put it right sides together on the cinch. So where your front curves up, you're gonna put that on the front curve, lining up those seams. And then on the back, it'll stay right sides together all the way around. This is where we are going to do our buttonholes. So my machine has buttonhole settings, and they're from 29 to 35 on mine. I always use 30 because it's just like a basic rectangle buttonhole. So that's one I always use. And what I always do is, instead of feeding it through from the front like you would with if you're making anything else. I put my garment behind and feed it through this way so that I can control the placement a lot better this way. So you're going to want to find where the center is. That's center-ish. And then just do one on either side of that. Just like a really small buttonhole because you're just feeding drawstring through it. So I'm not even gonna mark it, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna have to put this down. Oh, I need my button foot. All right, hold on. Okay, so I just had to run and get my buttonhole foot because it was in the other room. So basically how this works is if you have like a basic sewing machine, it should have come with this, and you just put the foot on right here where the metal part is, just like you would any other foot. And then here is where you would put a button in, and whatever this width is, it automatically makes the buttonhole the perfect size for the button that you're doing. So we're not putting a button in it, we're doing drawstring or elastic. So I'm just going to like manually put it kind of where I think it should go. I think that looks good. You don't want it too big because you have to flip it up in top stitch, so you want it to just like kind of be, you know, a little buttonhole. So take off this foot, put this one on. Oh, it would probably you could see what I was doing. And you still really can't. Put that on, and then there's this little lever here that you pull down, and it just goes in between these. There's two markings. It's really hard to see because of the light bulbs on my machine, but you can see right here that little gray piece, and that's just what you're gonna put down. And then I'm going to just line up where I want my buttonhole to start, and there looks good enough as anywhere. And then you just go, and your machine should do it for you if all goes well. So then you're gonna lift it up, cut your strings, and then do the next one, and then I'll show you how it came out. So you can see there's my two buttonholes. Pretty decent, good enough. Inside of the garment, not a big deal. Then I just throw a pin in the top, like that, so that I am gonna seam rip the hole open. That just is gonna stop my seam ripper from going beyond where the buttonhole is. So just automatically, you can see it just stopped it. So now I've got my buttonhole, and I'll do the same here. There, we're good. Now we want to fold up and top stitch. So put your other foot back on. You're going to take it out of buttonhole mode. Lift the little gray lever that we put down, and then you just fold this up a little, and then fold it up like that all the way around, and then just sew. So I'm gonna throw a couple pins. So I pinned all the way around. I'm going to get my double needle and throw that on. So for my double needle, I'm going to set my stitch length on 4.5 and put my tension up to 9. And then I'm just going to sew all the way around. And so now we just got to do the drawstring. So I'll go grab that and then we'll be done. Okay, so now I got my drawstring, which is actually just a strip of my ribbing fabric. I typically always use whatever I used for the neckband or in the cuffs as my drawstring too. I just like the look of it. And like when you pull it, it curls in on itself and it's really pretty. So I just always use that instead of drawstring. So I just attached it to a safety pin and I'm feeding it through. There's suggested lengths in the instructions for how long to make your drawstring, but you can always just cut it longer than what it suggests and then trim it down to what you want. That's typically what I do. If you're sewing to sell, there are certain regulations about how long the drawstring can be to be compliant. So if you are selling these garments, or even if, I think if you're gifting them too, they should be compliant. You definitely want to make sure that you're measuring your drawstring appropriately. So, just feed it through. It's okay.
Take a sip.
You taking a sip?
Yeah, I make that.
So yummy. Belle's been chugging coffee. Should be fun at nap time. Okay, so I got it back to the other side. So I'm just gonna pull and get it through as much as I can. And then lay it down and kind of see. This thing's gonna be problems. All right. Angle it down and kind of just like cinch it up and see how cinched you want it to be, and then compare that to like how long you want your drawstring to be, and make sure that they're pretty even. I usually end up actually tying mine and then cutting it right here so that there's no strings hanging down at all. That's just the look that I like, but you can do whatever you like. So I just pull it to kind of get it to curl in on itself, and then trim them equally. Put this aside. This could like work as a neckband later on, so save that. And then just tie a knot down at the bottom. And a knot right there. And you're done. Alright, thanks for watching this tutorial, guys. If you have any questions, just drop them down in the comments and we will try to get back to you as quickly as possible. And I hope you enjoyed the sew along.